안녕하세요 여러분, 김지윤입니다. 오늘 조금 의미 있는 인터뷰를 준비를 해봤습니다. 세계 평화 그리고 다자주의를 표방하면서 세워진 기구 United Nation, 유엔입니다. 유엔에는 개발을 전담하는 기구가 있는데요. 바로 UNDP, United Nations Development Program이죠. UNDP가 작년 12월에 새로운 리더십을 맞이했다고 하는데요. 그 주인공 알렉산더 드크루 총재입니다. 드크루 총재는 원래 벨기에 정치인입니다. 2020년부터 2025년까지 벨기에 총리를 지낸 바 있죠. 다자주의가 힘을 잃어가고 있다라는 소리를 듣는 지금 그의 행보에 더 많은 관심이 쏟아지고 있는데요. 벨기에 전 총리이자 새로운 UNDP의 수장 알렉산더 드크루 총재를 만나보겠습니다. So, Administrator Ducru, thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
My pleasure.
So, you have taken the job December last year, I remember. So, it's been like 6 months or so. So, are you enjoying it?
I'm definitely enjoying it. I also think that this is the right moment. And sometimes I have people questioning me, asking like, well, you're joining the UN at one of the most difficult moments. That I think is what you need to do. I think if you believe in multilateralism, if you believe that you're better off in tackling things together, and if you have something to offer, I think you need to engage. And so I don't regret it at all. Actually, I'm quite happy.
You pointed out so very correctly, because a lot of people are talking that the multilateralism is weakening. And in your first address to the UNDP's executive board, you said, quote, "This is the moment that will test and define the credibility and relevance of multilateralism," unquote. So could you please explain us what exactly you meant by? Do you still believe that multilateralism can work?
Oh, definitely. If you look at the big challenges with which we are confronted, being it climate change, being it managing migration flows, there is no country today in the world, even the most powerful one, that can say, oh, I can do this on my own. In these big endeavors, we have to do it together. Otherwise, we're not effective. And so, yes, we are in a difficult moment, but in the end, I'm 100% convinced that we will find each other again, at least on those topics where we know that on our own we are not able to do it. I think that for multilateralism, just as for governments and for democracy, I mean, your relevance and so the trust that you get it out of your capacity to deliver, to bring concrete results. I mean, there's big discussions on, is democracy still functioning or not? Well, yeah, there is places where democracy is being weakened, but very often it's weakened because those are sometimes democracies that do not deliver on the expectations of people. So if people are not having the feeling that they're being listened to or they're being found solutions to their problems, then people walk away. It's the same with multilateralism. If the UN cannot show that we deliver concrete results and that we make the difference in often complicated circumstances, then member states walk away and look in another direction. So that is not criticism. That is just, I think, the dynamic in which we are. So when we are being challenged, there's only one solution, that is to be on the top of our toes and show what we can do.
So what is the biggest test facing the UN system now?
We come out of a period where you had a US leadership of multilateralism, of the United Nations, and a lot of moral authority. And the United States got a lot back for doing that. The United States has changed its position now on that, and that is a political choice which, look, we have to respect. And we're moving into the direction of what one could call a multipolar world with large powers, but also middle powers. And they all want to have a role to play. That has not settled yet. And I believe that the system of the United Nations is still a valid one. Now, how does that function? What type of relationship, coalitions, oppositions? The dust has not settled yet. That might take some time. That, I think, is one challenge, is a bit of a philosophical one. The second one is the budget cuts. I mean, the budgets are being cut in a dramatic way. We have more crises in the world than ever since the Second World War. At the same time, the budgets are shrinking in an unseen way. We can do a lot of complaining on whether that is correct or not. I think our number one assignment is to adapt. And then maybe last element is we see a total erosion of the principles on which stability in the world was based the last decades. International law, humanitarian principles. that is eroding, and that I found a very worrying trend.
Well, as you pointed out, the United States cuts its aid budget and also doing serious restructuring. But it's not just the United States. European donors, they are also slashing the international aid budget.
Yeah.
So is it just a temporary the fiscal problem, or is it like a signal that people are losing trust in the international aid system?
I think national governments are in an incredibly difficult moment. You know, every dollar, every euro, you can only spend it once. And the demands are in all directions. The demands on investing more in security and in defense, we don't even contest it. I mean, we understand why it is necessary. At the same time, there is also demands at a moment like this to have budgets on fighting the cost of living. And there's many demands. And we understand that this is a very difficult balancing act. What we will explain on the development side is that development is part of your security agenda. We are the first line of defense in crisis, and you could even say that we are probably what you would call a preemptive strike, something you do to avoid that a crisis takes place. We cannot guarantee that crisis will not take place, but countries which are growing are less prone for crisis. And even if you have a conflict, you cannot drone yourself out of every problem. At some point, someone needs to stabilize, to recover, to rebuild. We have been actually quite successful in doing that. And so what we try to explain is that in your security agenda, development is not soft power. We are part of your hard power, and you need to look at it from that perspective.
Because you are from national politics, you probably can answer this, because the voters are saying and asking, why should we spend money on the countries abroad? Because we have problem here at home.
Oh, that is true. You have problems at home. But a part of those problems come from abroad. If you look at the world today, I mean, you have today a crisis in the Gulf region. That is, from a Korean perspective, that's quite far away. But you do feel it every day. And so distance is not a protection anymore. And you have it here on energy prices. A big part of the world will have it on food insecurity because of the dramatic decrease of production of fertilizers, which comes out of that world. And that we know now already will lead to food shortages, that will lead to displacement and refugees, which is something that could touch the rest of the world. And this is just one example. We don't live in a world where someone can say, oh, but I'm completely isolated from this. Now, you can be an export-led economy, but if the world is in instability, that is going to touch you. And that we need to explain to the home public. You can live in your own street. Your home can be perfectly okay. If the rest of your street is in misery, it will touch you. We are all incredibly interconnected. That interconnectedness, I think, is a great advantage, and countries such as South Korea have used it to their benefit. But it also means that you need to engage. The economic growth today, if you're looking for it, that is in developing countries. It's there that the needs are. Those are countries with attractive demographics. I think it would be a mistake not to be part of that. People will say, well, that's quite transactional. I don't think that's an issue. There is nothing wrong when you invest in the rest of the world to say, well, I want to get something out of it. Besides stability and so on, it's also an opportunity for your local economy to be part of that.
Because the world is so connected, you cannot completely alone and survive and thrive.
Totally. It's going to affect you, first of all. It's also a part of prosperity that you lose. I mean, there are countries in the world that are completely isolated from the rest of the world. How poor are they? The isolated countries in the world are the poorest countries in the world. Poorest from a financial point of view, poorest from a human development point of view.
So UNDP has a strategic plan for 2026 and 2029, and it has 4 priorities: prosperity for all, and effective governance, crisis resilience, and a healthy planet. So could you please walk us through what these priorities are?
Well, first of all, prosperity for all, in the previous strategic plan, it was fighting poverty. It's a different perspective. It's the same, right? We want to eradicate poverty, but when we say prosperity for all, it is more on the positive side. That means that we also see that in what we call middle-income countries, there's still margin for progress. We do that today with creating private sector environments, helping markets to be investable, helping to create jobs. This is one of the big care abouts today in developing countries, because the Gen Z is there, and the Gen Z protests that we saw last year and 2 years ago, they want jobs to be created, so that's a high priority for us. Second element I would put in order of importance is obviously healthy planet. And healthy planet means a lot. The climate change work is a big one in that. We do a lot of work, but we need to speed up. Sometimes a crisis is an opportunity. What is happening now in the fossil fuel markets, I mean, the case has never been clearer for investing in renewables, because of the fact that it's cheaper today, but also because of the lack of instability linked to it. I think people discover it today that, it's much more stable. So that is a big chunk of what we do, and a lot of that climate-related work is private financed, and we help in organizing that. Third element, which you mentioned, is governance. Now, governance, that might sound a bit vague, but governance is, first of all, organizing elections. Last year, we helped organizing 44 elections throughout the world. Democracy still is the best system there is. I hear the criticism to democracy, and I also hear the vulnerability that democracy has. Look, we have to explain that democracy is not an easy thing. It's complicated. It's the organized disagreement. When sometimes governments get criticized, there is internal disputes. Oh, yes, I prefer living in a country where there is internal disputes. There is countries in the world where there is no internal disputes. That's true. In autocracies, there is no internal disputes. I prefer being in a country where we have those disputes. So sometimes we have to be a bit more patient with democracy, and those places where it is when being put under pressure, it's more resilient than you think. And the last element, which you mentioned, was crisis. Yes, 60% of what we do in fragile and crisis settings. When you have a humanitarian catastrophe, you move away from humanitarian orientation to getting the economy going again, restoring services, opening schools again, making sure that the justice system is working again. From the start, you don't need to have a perspective of aid. You need to have a perspective of recovery and reconstruction. And the earlier you do it, the better outcomes you get. You're not providing people a service by keeping them in a situation of dependency. You need to get them out of dependency as soon as possible, and this is typically what we do.
Well, that actually leads to Revive, the Undp and Korea launched together. So it is like early recovery initiative, as I understand. But as you said, the Undp was already doing it, isn't it right?
Well, we were doing it, but this is a big priority for South Korean. And maybe let me use this occasion to thank the South Korean people for the long-standing support. We are extremely grateful for the funding that we have received and that we have continued to receive. We don't take this for granted. And so we're extremely grateful for that. And I really want to give that message and explain that we use that funding to do things which really make a difference in very complicated environment. We do that with Korean funding in Gaza, for example, where the circumstances are dramatic.
Well, maybe because we understand what it looked like. We've been to, it's a long time ago, but we went to the war and we went through the developmental periods. Mm-hmm. And I understand the Undp helped a lot Korea and with the international aid assistance. Then we were the recipient of the international aid, but now we are donor and partner country. So I think it can tell a lot about what Undp can do and achieve.
The development story of South Korea accentuates one thing which is really crucial at how we work, is it's only successful when you have local political leadership. Leaders who say, look, this is our own development. And we are going to work with UN agencies and with others, but we draft our own course. We need more success stories like this. You can only have other success stories if you have countries such as South Korea who want to be part of that.
Yeah, I did a public opinion poll like 10 years ago, and when we asked about the ODA program of South Korea, interestingly, the older generation were much more supportive of the ODA of Korea, probably because they remember how we looked like 50, 60 years ago, and very also proud that not then we were recipient, we received the aid and assistance from other foreign countries, but now we can be a country who can give some aid and help to other countries. So that played a lot, I think.
But so what you indicate is that for a younger generation, we need to explain it better. History is not just something that you inherit. History is interesting, but it's interesting if you use it to shape the future. There's many ways in which you can play a role in shaping the world. It's not only politicians who make great speeches. I mean, the world moves forward when you have young people who wake up in the morning and who say, I'm not going to complain. I'm going to put my sleeves on. I'm going to get to action. The future and tackling our endeavors is not just something which is far away from you, especially in the world of today. And with the easy access to technology, everyone can be part of it. A younger generation is maybe less convinced of ODA, but at the same time, fighting climate change is really high on their preoccupations. I would say, don't let that opportunity go away. I mean, there are so many possibilities to be part of it and to have a positive contribution yourself. My belief has always been, and maybe it's a bit naive, but in your level of satisfaction in life also comes from the impact that you've had on others, and not only the impact you have on your own life. Now, I might sound old, and I don't want to sound too fatherly in this, but there's so many possibilities for you to be part of having an impact in the world.
Well, is there any particular role that you expect Korea to play?
First of all, the good example. I mean, the example of, look, this works, and look what kind of society that has been built here. Element number two, I mean, this is a highly sophisticated technological society, and I'm a big believer in technology. Technology is an incredible accelerator for development. Today, for us, artificial intelligence is an incredible accelerator in upskilling people. South Korea is in quite an amazing position to leverage that knowledge.
But still, UNDP cannot be free from all the criticisms. Some people cynically say that decades of international aid had really changed or transformed fundamentally structure of poverty, inequality, or conflict. I'd like to hear your very honest opinion on that.
Honestly, let me push back on that with the numbers. If you say it hasn't changed anything on poverty, the last 25 years, extreme poverty has halved. The last 20 years, child mortality has decreased with 50%. And the access to education has improved and so on. Humanity has never, ever done that. The progress that we have seen the last decades, it's unseen. Now, is this only due to development investment? No. It's also thanks to more trade. It's also thanks to more investments. But development agencies were part of that. And we never claimed that we are the solution to everything. But we are part of that puzzle. And I think we forget that. The incredible progress. I mean, you have seen progress here in South Korea, but throughout the world, we should maybe celebrate a bit more on what we have achieved. Now, that doesn't mean that we should be blind for the challenges that we still have. But this is a moment of inflection. That is true. We are not deaf for the criticism. I mean, can we do better? Can we be more efficient? Can we be faster? I hear all that, and we are working to do that. The question now is, I mean, we've had this kind of progress. Do we say like, oh, now it's okay, and we just flat out, or we go down, or do we continue with that? I'm obviously a believer that we should continue.
So it's not really clear-cut linear line, but we are moving forward slowly, gradually, sometimes back and forth.
Gradually, but we have a tendency, obviously, to always to be focused on what's going wrong. I'm not blind or deaf for what is going wrong, but there is enough Cassandras in the world who want to talk about what's going wrong. That's not me. I'm not good at that. And I would rather focus on what works than spend my days complaining on what is not working.
So what about this assertion that not all the international aid and the money goes into the right place? Sometimes it is used to strengthen the very regime, oppress their own people. So what do you do to prevent this from happening?
First of all, I mean, there's different gradations in it. One element is if there would be fraud. For example, we have very extensive mechanisms to fight that. Can I guarantee 100% that it would never happen? No, I cannot guarantee it. But I can guarantee it, and when we see a problem, we will be fully transparent. We will put everything on the table, and we will not try to cover it up. We work in countries where political system is not always 100% in line with the UN Charter. Now, there the question is, it's a choice. You can say, okay, it's not perfect. Human rights are not being guaranteed, so we prefer not to work at all. If you have that logic, there's not many places in the world where you can work. Or you say, okay, our perspective is how can we improve? And how can we improve the daily lives of people? My perspective, respect of human rights, creating people's dignity, it's not something that falls out of the sky. It's a process, and it takes a long time. If there is progress possible, I would rather engage and I would rather be present.
Well, if you're a politician in the national politics, you're judged by voters through the election. How good you were and how bad you were, and then you can keep the job or not. But under the UN system, it's not that clear. How can you sure about the accountability, who is going to be responsible for? And
Yeah, I mean, as a politician, it's quite clear. I mean, the only thing that matters is how many votes you have. It's very confronting, but that's the system. As UN, if you take in my role, we have accountability, and we have what we call an executive board. My voters are the 193 members of the United Nations, and they are part in my board. I have 3 board meetings per year. In each one of these, I will explain our plans, and I get questions, and sometimes I get grilled. Which
Really?
means, okay, yeah, I mean, they're very, very critical on what happened there, and can you explain? And I've done now one, I have another one coming in June. So we have accountability, and we are being challenged on how good we are, and rightfully so. And if you're not being challenged, not being held accountable, that leads to complacency, and that's not a good thing. So it's a different way of having to explain what you do, but it's there.
well, you were Prime Minister of Belgium from 2020 until 2025. This is your brand new job.
Yeah.
And how you moved from national politics to the United Nations. So what made you decide?
Well, before being Prime Minister, I was Minister for Development for 6 years. And this is the best period of my life.
Really?
It opened my eyes. In many developed countries, the economic discussions you have, they are really in the margin because societies are set. The countries where we work, these are still the fundamental debates on how do you organize a society. There it's policy that has a direct impact on people's life. I find that fascinating. And so when I quit as being a Minister of Development, I said, this has gotten under my skin, and I will come back to this. My exposure to the cruelty of the world, to how war is development in reverse, that is something I picked up those 6 years of development minister, and that will never go away from me. UNDP has 23,000 people working in 170 countries. We do development work in 130 countries. I like to describe who we are as each one of us. We are agents of humanity. We're an agent because each one of us can do something. And humanity because besides economic growth and development and all those things, I think a certain level of humanity, of compassion, I would say brotherlyhood and sisterlyhood amongst people, I think it is what differentiates us from the cruelty that you often have in the world. And I'm incredibly grateful that I'm allowed to do this. And I really see it this way.
Well, you just started the work and a lot of things ahead that you have to resolve and improve. I know it's kind of premature question, but at the end of your term, what would make you say that at least under my leadership, UNDP made a real difference?
Look, our number one goal is prosperity for all. Continuing to lift people out of poverty, having countries on the path of opening up, of creating a local private sector, that really is the litmus test for us. Second element is we need to protect our planet. Again, getting in a new momentum in investing in renewable economy and renewable energy is a crucial one. And then I think we also have to protect people. Protecting people means helping people in very difficult circumstances, getting them out of a situation of dependency and back into reconstructing their lives. That's the 3 goals on which I want to be evaluated.
I believe you can achieve that. I mean, at least you were Prime Minister of Belgium, the country with how many parties?
Yeah, so the coalition that I led was a coalition of 7 parties. Exactly. So that is a lot.
Speaking French, speaking Dutch.
And speaking German as well. We are a trilingual country. Honestly, I think we're a fantastic country with complications, but everyone has its complications. But to me, those 15 years national politician, I'm extremely grateful to do it. But I turned that page, and it's time for something else. And I'm really proud of the team with whom I work. I work with incredible people every day, and getting the most out of that incredible team, that is what keeps me going every day.
Yeah, I believe you'll be excellent at that. I mean, this is the country naturally very multilateral. I believe you'll be very, very good at navigating all those different interests of all those countries and getting together in the United Nations system.
I will try. I will try.
Thank you so much, sir.